They didn't drive all the way there for nothing.
Right.
They drove all the way there to kill their child.
Yeah.
And by God's grace and mercy, you were there. So whether they went 6 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours out of their way or whatever, they encountered you, a believer in Jesus who knows God and who shared the truth with them.
I am yours, I am yours, I am yours, send me, Lord. I am yours, I am yours, I am yours.
Welcome to the Gospel-Centered Pro-Life Podcast, a podcast designed to equip, encourage, and challenge you in pro-life ministry, and always with a focus on the gospel. Stay tuned.
I felt your passion, touched your heart.
Welcome to the Gospel-Centered Pro-Life Podcast. My name is Vicki, and I'm here with Daniel Parks. Hey, Daniel.
Hello.
Hello. So we are here recording from Charlotte, where unfortunately the abortion laws have not changed as a result of Roe V Wade being overturned. And so we've mentioned this, I think, on a few podcasts, we've been dealing with really increased numbers from not only increased numbers, but people coming from really far away.
Yeah.
Sometimes there was someone from Mississippi that we dealt with not too long ago. I have seen California tags in there. I doubt they're really from California, but Alabama. Today we saw a few people from Alabama. So here we are in North Carolina, and we're seeing a lot of cars pulling in from Georgia, from Florida, from Tennessee. Alabama. Those are probably the four biggest ones.
Now, I will say Charlotte is an abortion destination. We've shared this often, even before the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Charlotte is an abortion destination for the entire Southeast.
Right.
So we've always seen people from other states, at least from South Carolina, for sure.
From South Carolina,
right?
for sure.
Sometimes you would think you're in South Carolina with all the tags of cars that are coming from South Carolina. We also have on a pretty regular basis, seen people from Georgia, but not really. Like maybe every once in a while, somebody from Alabama or Mississippi or Virginia or something like that, Tennessee. But now, we're seeing definitely. I mean, I was out there a couple Saturdays ago, and I remember seeing at least 3 or 4 tags from people from Alabama. Which, again, is not very common. So we're definitely seeing an influx. And I think, again, we've shared this, that there have been some days during the week, I think a Tuesday a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago, there were like 90 people, 88 people there for an abortion.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been several mornings that we have left at 12:30. We've already been there, say, 4 hours, and we just can't be there anymore, especially in this heat.
Yeah.
And people are still coming in. So as we write reports every day, reporting numbers, and we've had several reports that just say 60 plus because the people are still coming in, but we just can't be there any longer. So that's one of the problems is the burnout of if you don't have enough people to cover both mornings and afternoons, since there's so many people coming now, they really are still coming in after our morning crew is ready to go home. So that's one of the issues. And the second issue, and that's what this podcast is going to really focus on, is, well, what do you do with people from 3-4 states away, especially if there's not a Love Life presence that, or sidewalk counselors that you know of available in that community. Yeah.
And this, of course, applies not just to Charlotte, but it applies to, California is one of those destination states for abortion. California, the governor there has already put up a website that basically is saying for people who are out of state, and I think California is even advertising in other states and billboards and stuff like that, you can come to California for your abortion. California,
and they'll help pay for you to come, I've read in some cases.
They'll help pay for the abortion.
Right.
They'll help pay for your travel there. They'll help pay for child care.
Incredible.
They'll help pay for your room and board when you're there in California to have an abortion.
Yeah.
And so California, definitely this will apply to you folks. Like, how do you deal with people who are coming from Arizona, because we've seen that, or coming from Texas or wherever, that they're far away, so your resources locally don't necessarily apply. Other states, I think probably like Washington State, I don't think they've really seen, our team there has really seen an influx in people coming from out of state, but they're likely to. I think New York is going to be one of those destination, or already is one of those destination cities for abortions. And so, yeah, this kind of speaks to that whole dynamic. Praise God that Roe v. Wade was overturned and that there are states that have made and are making abortion illegal. We're glad for that.
Right.
The reality is, though, that women are still going to seek out abortions, and they're going to come to your cities where these are kind of abortion havens, abortion destinations like Charlotte, like places in California and other cities. So how do you deal with that? And I think we're going to be talking about, of course, not just, we do a lot of podcasts about how to reach those people, right? It's no different really reaching them.
In terms of what you say, there's really no difference, right? Yeah.
But as far as like resources and connections and things like that, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with a mom chose life here in Charlotte who is from Alabama or Nashville, Tennessee, which is one of the situations that we've dealt with.
Yeah.
What do you do to get her connected?
Right.
Because we're not just saying don't have an abortion. We want to get her connected, get her under some discipleship, mentor program, whatever, plugged into a pregnancy center, something beyond, the temptation to come back to the abortion center. So that's what we're going to be talking through.
Yeah, so you need strategies in place, I think, and everybody is going to need to think about this. If you are in a state where you're having a huge influx, you're going to need to know how to develop those resources outside of your state.
Yeah.
And if you're in a state where abortion has been outlawed, guaranteed you're going to have moms who have traveled to Charlotte or to one of these destination abortion states, and your role now can shift to providing churches and resources for those women when they return home.
Yeah.
And making yourself known to the people that are in these destination states like in Charlotte, California.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that we have, which I think is a great blessing for Love Life, one of the things I think that the Lord really in his wisdom gave us as an initiative is the House of Refuge initiative.
Yes.
Asking churches, whether they're in a state right now that allows abortion or not, asking churches to become houses of refuge.
Yeah.
Places that men and women can run to rather than to the local abortion center, they can run to the local church.
Right.
And with this network of House of Refuge churches, we have over 130, I think, House of Refuge churches. Now the goal is to have thousands of House of Refuge
churches. Every community,
churches.
we would hope to have one. I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think I raised the point specifically about the House of Refuge in this article. Can you tell folks how if they would like to have their church become a house of refuge? You don't necessarily have to have a Love Life presence in your city. You can still have your church become a house of refuge that we will equip and train and provide materials that will help that church to know how to deal with abortion-minded women, providing mentors, foster care. So yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of connection pieces. If a church becomes a House of Refuge church, essentially the pastor will agree to read the House of Refuge statement from the pulpit. I was just in California last week at a House of Refuge church that read the statement for the first time from the pulpit. It was powerful. Yeah. It was a congregational thing. The whole congregation was a part of this thing. The pastor is saying, as a church, here's what we will do if you find yourself in an unplanned pregnancy.
Right.
Here's what we will not do. We're not gossip about you. We're not going to talk about you behind your back. But what we will do is stand with you and do everything in our power to come alongside you and to help you.
Yeah.
So essentially the pastor agrees to read that statement and appoints a rep. So the pastor is not the person who's really the point person. It's a rep that they appoint. And that rep will go through a training. So we have trainings that are associated with this. And that training will teach them how to reach a mom that's in their congregation or that has been sent to their congregation and connect her with resources. And also there's like trainings and the ability to get other people in the congregation through trainings to become mentors. For cities where there's abortion clinics that are functioning, there'll even be some training. There's training available for them to do sidewalk outreach and things like that. But more information about this is lovelife.org/House of Refuge. And I think you can just put in House of Refuge, but you may need to put the little hyphens between house -of-refuge.
Yeah.
That's how it looks. I think you can just put in House of Refuge, lovelife.org, House of Refuge. I'll try to put a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah.
But definitely get your church on board as a House of Refuge. The vision for this thing is that we have a map of the whole United States of America, and really can identify where these House of Refuge churches are so that women can see there's a House of Refuge church in their city.
Right. And we've already started that. We've already got a map of those, and we're hoping to expand that so that really no matter what community they come from. But so I did write an article to go along with this podcast of some of the strategies that we really scrambled to employ when we discovered 90 people coming for an abortion and realized, wow, we don't have enough, we don't know what the resources are in these outlying areas in many cases. So one of the first things is that we have found the mentorship program of Love Life to be enormously valuable.
Yeah.
And the only way that I believe that people on the sidewalk can deal with the huge numbers. They cannot be responsible for following up with these women, but a mentor in that woman's area can.
Yeah.
So if there's not a Love Life presence in your city with Love Life mentors that have been trained, one of the things that we are doing is appointing phone mentors to, this is not ideal. This is if there is not the ideal. This is the way that we deal with the less than perfect situation.
Yeah.
Is appoint someone from a trained mentorship program to be a phone mentor with that woman if there isn't a local presence. And while that's not ideal, oftentimes, I hear this probably more often than not from the women, one of the main factors for them being there for an abortion is they feel alone.
Yeah.
And a phone mentor can deal with that. Just being someone that they can talk to, that can help them problem solve, that can be a godly influence, that can be an encouragement with scripture, whatever, can be really, really valuable. So it's not perfect. It's not as good as someone right there in the community, but I just want to point that out, especially for some of you cities where you no longer have open abortion clinics, but maybe you do have a Love Life presence and you do have trained mentors. That would be a good use of your mentors to offer them up as phone mentors to other cities. So that's one of the things. Filling the sidewalk with volunteers is no longer going to be present in a lot of those cities where abortion has been banned. And so those volunteers could really be used for the cities where abortion has increased for so many things, like doing research in resources throughout the nation and then getting that information to counselors in places like here. So one of the things that Daniel's wife did that has been really helpful for us is she took our notes on where these women were coming from with this new influx. And there were 4 or 5 states that were predominantly where people were coming from. And what Courtney did was develop a resource list. She basically Googled.
Yeah.
Google is our friend. You can learn so much through Google. And she found resources in all of those states and compiled it into a resource book that is available to our sidewalk counselors.
Yeah.
And that anyone can do.
Yeah.
Figure out where are all of these people coming from, and find out the resources in those different states. One thing that a volunteer earlier, I said maybe you've got a lot of volunteers now that used to be on the sidewalk and they want something to do. Well, one thing they could do is contact churches.
Yeah.
Start contacting churches in these cities where these women are coming from, and talk to them about House of Refuge, just talking to them about the programs that they might have. Maybe they'd be willing to give a child care scholarship to these moms. So those are all important things and valuable things that we've already done. One of the major things that we offer here in Charlotte that we really can no longer offer to people coming from far away is a baby shower.
Right.
And so I was brainstorming, well, how can we fill that need because it's so valuable to be able to tell the moms, you don't have to worry about getting things for your baby. The church will cover that. And Amazon has baby registries.
Yeah.
And again, using volunteers to kind of connect with churches in wherever the area is that the mom's traveling from, and maybe helping to coordinate a baby shower through an Amazon registry and through that church.
Yeah, we did that one time from. You remember the situation? A young lady who ultimately she came here for an abortion. You connected with her, and then ultimately she moved to South Dakota.
Yeah,
and remember we did her an Amazon baby shower. She sent us a picture of like her whole front doorstep with all this stuff, and she was amazed.
Filled with diapers. I remember her, she said a very specific need was diapers for the ongoing sizes, too, because she was very poor, came from a Native American reservation, and really poverty rampant. The church is already overrun trying to help the people, and diapers was the big need, and her room was literally filled with boxes of diapers that would get that baby through like the next 2 or 3 years. So and it's
simply all it was one of our volunteers here locally put together a registry, asked her what are some of the things that you would need, and of course there's some obvious things like diapers, put together that registry, and then we just put it out on social media, sent it out, people that we know, hey, would you be willing to buy some of these items? And they just buy the items. You go on the registry, you buy them, and it automatically ships them over to the person who in that registry who's designated to receive those items.
Right, yeah. So having a volunteer maybe from a state that's been a sidewalk counselor and no longer is, because they don't need to be at this moment, having a volunteer maybe to set up that, to do that, but also to really reach out to the sidewalk people in the states that are being deluged with abortions and asking, what do you need? What are the resources, the sorts of resources that you need, what areas, and compiling a list like what Courtney did for us here locally. I know that was a lot of work. And we as sidewalk counselors wouldn't have the time to do that. But if there was someone that would be willing to do that kind of thing, having that list, that then our sidewalk counselors now have this list. And when we see someone from Georgia, we can say, hey, we have a whole list of resources that we can offer you.
And I think at the top of the list on those resources is going to be pregnancy centers, right? So, for example, you folks who are in California, and you're going to have an influx. You've probably already seen an influx of people from Texas and Arizona and some other states maybe around that have made abortion illegal. Having a list of pregnancy resource centers in Texas. I mean, you really want to look at what are some of the bigger cities that are nearer to where you are, right? What are some of the bigger cities in Texas where people would come from, bigger cities in Arizona and other states, maybe even Idaho, especially for those in Northern California. There's folks that are likely to come from Idaho and some of the other Midwest states for abortions there. And so, just trying to compile a list. You got to start somewhere. So I would start with the pregnancy centers, then maternity homes, and just put together that list. And however you format it, I mean, you could have one sheet per state or something like that. Mm-hmm. But either way, just having that list and being able to text it over to a woman who's there for an abortion. Now, I will say this, and this is really not in the article, I don't think, but you would think, and you'd be right, that it's a harder sell for someone who's come from 6 hours away or 4 hours away, right? It's a harder sell to say, well, you're already here, but actually you need to change your mind because you're about to kill your child.
Right.
And you may even feel a little bit like I don't know, I won't say guilty, but I was like, well, I'm asking this person to drive. They essentially drove all the way here for nothing. Don't forget, no, they didn't drive all the way there for nothing.
Right.
They drove all the way there to kill their child.
Yeah.
And by God's grace and mercy, you were there. So whether they went 6 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours out of their way or whatever, they encountered you, a believer in Jesus who knows God and who shared the truth with them.
Yeah.
And so, they can definitely be inconvenienced with drive back 6 hours and go back to where you came from. Don't kill your child. But again, it can be a harder sell because they have made some sacrifices to be there, right? Mm-hmm. They have taken a day off of work or 2 days off of work or whatever. And so, it maybe is a little more of an uphill battle for sure. It's already an uphill battle, right? But a little bit more of an uphill battle because you're asking them to go back to where they came from. But when God softens their heart, again, the work that we do is God's work, right? And so when God softens their heart and they choose life, no matter how far away they came from, think about that ride home. If they have that sense of relief, they've decided to do the right thing, they get to drive home with that sense of relief.
Yeah.
One of the practical things you could do, though, that could help alleviate some of the stress or some of the strain or some of the excuses that they might have. I mean, I've heard that. I've heard that from people. We drove here for 4 hours. You want me to drive back 4 hours and basically came here for no reason?
Right.
And the response is, no, you came here for a reason. You came here to know that there's help and that there are alternatives. But a practical way to alleviate that is maybe get some gas cards.
I just wrote that down, Daniel.
Yeah.
Yes. You're almost as smart as me.
Yeah. I'm getting there. I'm working on it. But yeah, have some gas cards.
Yeah. Grocery cards also.
Grocery cards too could be helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to give them cash. We never give out cash.
Right.
But it could help. Oh, yeah, you've got to drive back 4 hours. I have a $50 gas card right here, or $75 gas card.
You know what? This did happen, and we've probably talked about this. I think we did mention these people, but who had driven 10 hours, and they were out of money. They had not eaten, and they didn't have any gas.
Yeah.
And we did, so as kind of a strategy thing for cities to think about is have churches whoever donating these gas cards and grocery cards, because I was able to get them gas, get them groceries, and that helped them to get home. So yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, and that's something that volunteers, churches in your area can help with, or churches and from other areas. We had a similar situation here just a couple days ago where someone drove 8 hours, and I didn't know the resources, but you did, Daniel. And I knew that there was a group of sidewalk counselors. They were not Love Life, but in this woman's area. And I contacted Daniel and Courtney actually, and they got me the contact information for this guy. And he then I was still counseling the woman. She had not chosen life yet, but I knew where she was. And I knew that if I could offer her that there was going to be hope the moment she pulled into her driveway back home, that it could make the difference between life or death, because it was a really hard situation. And by the time that she ultimately chose life, at least for now, I had contacted this sidewalk counselor who had contacted the people that help with resources in that entire state.
Okay.
Had contacted, she was Hispanic, didn't speak English, had already gotten me a Hispanic speaking person that would provide resources. And then I had called my own group of sidewalk team members saying we might need housing for her because she said she might be kicked out when she went home. And there was really no reason for her to return home if the boyfriend was going to kick her out. And so we had these network of people making calls, had, before she had even chosen life, had found places for her to live here in Charlotte if it turns out she called the boyfriend and he said, don't come home.
Yeah.
And we had a whole network already of resources for when she returned to her community. So having a network of people, your team members, whatever, maybe they're going to be volunteers from a church in the area that can make calls for you while you're in the midst of counseling, so that you really do know, I've got this that I can offer to you when you go home.
Yeah. And it is good as much as you can to do your research and have the information beforehand. Mm-hmm. But we've learned that on the fly, the Lord can very graciously connect us and can kind of build that support network. I mean, essentially what we're doing is we're trying to, all the excuses, well, I'm already here and I don't have gas to get back or whatever. It's like, well, we got a gas card for you. Well, my boyfriend's going to kick me out. Oh, yeah, well, we have a network of people that actually have a place for you to stay. Mm-hmm. Oh, when you get back to Tennessee, actually, we have a pregnancy center that we can connect you with. We have a Spanish-speaking, if you can kind of take away every excuse. Now, again, we can't answer every question. We can't give a resource for everything. We can't, throw money at the situation. Ultimately, God's got to change their heart. But it's really cool and effective when you can show them that for every struggle that they offer, that they put up there as an excuse, there's a corresponding answer and a corresponding resource. And there is, right? Yeah. There's all this stuff out there in all of these states that really makes abortion it's not your only option, right?
It's not. And, I don't think we have done this with Love Life yet, but I think it's actually not a bad idea. That occurs to me is some of you listening are going to be in a place where there is no Love Life presence. Maybe you're not a part of Love Life, but you do have resources.
Yeah.
And I would say contact Love Life. Go to lovelife.org. I'm sure there's a contact, right? We can contact and let them know we have such and such resources that we want to make sure your missionaries know are available if you ever have a need in our state.
Yeah.
And I think that would be very valuable in helping us to develop the resource list in the cities where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I think we're ready to wrap this episode up. What do you think?
Yep.
Yeah. So we hope this was an encouragement and a blessing to you guys. And we hope that all of these episodes are. We would strongly encourage you guys to leave us a review on whatever podcast service that you use. Just leave us a 5-star review, and we'd be blessed by that if you were blessed by this episode. We'd also like to hear from you. Maybe you have a word of encouragement. We've gotten a few words of encouragement over the past couple of weeks of some of these episodes just being a blessing to people. We'd love to hear from you on that stuff. If there's maybe some episodes you'd like for us to cover, some subjects you'd like for us to cover in episodes, we'd love to cover those. So you can reach out to us. You can reach me, Daniel, at lovelife.org. You reach her, Vicky, with a Y, at lovelife.org. I know Vicky would love to hear from you.
Right.
But until next time, God bless.
God bless you all.
Give me an outlet for love. Give me an outlet for gratitude. I know it will cost me my life, but nothing's too precious since I met you.